Well, good morning. Happy Thursday to you today. It's a beautiful day. It's the 27th of February. Tomorrow is the last day of February. And then when we meet again on Monday, it will be March. and it will be hard to believe that we will be March. We will be in March. February always goes by so quickly, mostly because it's such a great month. How are you doing today? Hope you're having a great day. It's a beautiful day outside. It was a little bit warmer than I thought. The Alexa said it would be 46 degrees and it was 50. So a nice morning outside this morning. It's still very, very dark, but it's starting to get lighter. By the time I end the podcast, I start to see light coming out of my window. Actually, I've got the shades partially open this morning so I can see that happen. And let's see, what else? What else is there? Some things going on this weekend. There is a Vale Preservation Society tour. So if you want to learn about that, go to valepreservationsociety.org. Take a look. There's going to be a lecture on the history of something at Empire High School, something like that, at 9:30 a.m. on Saturday. And then for those who are able to, there's going to be a walk down to some of the historic sites in Vale. You know what's interesting? No, I'm not going to get into that. History is important. Let me put it that way. History is important. History can make or break your community. Think about what makes the Middle East so traveled today, and the reason is because it's got such rich history. And we may actually get into that a little bit today. But if your town has history, people want to come and see the history. If your town doesn't have history, then it's just a town. History is important, and we should preserve history because every town has history. Vale has an incredible history. It was a railroad stop. It was purchased from the Vale brothers. It was one of the few railroad stops between Tucson and Chicago or St. Louis. It's just, history is important. People don't realize how a history is important until the history's gone. And it's like, man, what happened? Anyway, maybe that's why I'm such a big proponent of the Vale Preservation Society, because we are trying to preserve the history of our community. Anyway, what else do I want to say? So today is Thursday, and then we meet. We won't meet Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We have a guest preacher at Christ Youth in Vale, so I'm excited about that. And then I think Sunday, yeah, I think that's about it. Birthdays, we have birthdays that we're going to celebrate. Excuse me, little frog in my throat, ribbit. Kelsey Newell is tomorrow. Heather Bursbach is tomorrow. Mike Lonsway is Saturday. Alicia Parrott is Saturday. So those four people have birthdays. So happy birthday to all of you. I'm guessing Alicia, let me look and see if I have her year. It doesn't seem right. Is it right? 92. Yeah, okay. No. 90, yeah. Yeah, okay. All right. Okay, let's go. I'm going to close out of that, and I'm going to go over to here. And, yeah, let's get into our study. We are in Mark chapter 5. We've been learning about the demon-possessed man. The man was super strong, and nobody could contain him because he was so strong, and he was kind of wild, and he had demons in them, and they didn't like Jesus. So as Jesus came close to the man, he's like, "What have you to do with me, Jesus?" And he said, "Who are you?" And he said, "We are Legion." Is that? Yeah, my name is Legion, he replied, for we are many. And he begged Jesus again and again not to send them out of the area. So I don't know. I think Legion is a scary name. If you come across a demon named Legion, go in the opposite direction. That sounds like a very, very powerful demon. And this is where we get. I think there was even a TV show called Legion, if I remember correctly. I don't remember. Anyway, so Jesus sends this demon, for we are many, into the pigs, and the pigs go over the cliff, and they die. And the question is, did the demons die with the pigs, or did they go free roaming in the world? And we don't know the answer to that. We're hoping that they died with the pigs. But we're going to continue to pick up the story on chapter 5, verse 14. Those tending the pigs ran off and reported this in the town and the countryside, and the people went out to see what happened. When they came to Jesus, they saw the man who had been possessed by the legion of demons sitting there, dressed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. Those who had seen it told the people what had happened to the demon-possessed man and told about the pigs as well. And the people began to plead with Jesus to leave their region. Okay. This does not make sense to me. If you have a man that's able to drive demons out of possessed people, why would you want him to leave the region? So Jesus drives the pigs out, the story gets out, and the people come and see that the story is true, and they're afraid. And they want Jesus to leave. And you'd say, why? This doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I mean, here's a man who was possessed, and he's sitting there, he's dressed, he's calm, he's talking to people. It's like, man, this man can become a productive member of society. But the thing is that maybe they don't want him to become a productive member of society. Why? Well, it's change, first of all. And now you've got a guy who was the talk of the town. He's no longer the talk of the town. Maybe even people came to see this guy. I mean, it's just, you would think that people would be very, very excited that a demon-possessed man becomes healed. But apparently not. Apparently they're afraid of Jesus. I guess the other is that they could be afraid of Jesus' power. Man, if he can cast out demons, what else can he do? And we don't want him around here. We don't want that kind of power around us. I guess it'd be like Ida Tarbell, who was able to write an article about John D. Rockefeller that made him look like a tyrant. Oh, by the way, if you have an investigative reporter writing about you, the truth is they will find something about you that they will not like and that they will exploit and could be your downfall, depending upon how it's exploited. The people love to believe the worst about people. They love conspiracy theories. And if you dig deep enough, there's something you can grab onto politically and destroy a person. And this demon-possessed man, if they dug into him, they could probably find something. They were afraid of Jesus. They were afraid of that kind of power because people are afraid, and they don't like change. Even if it's a demon-possessed man who is healed, they don't like it, which I just find crazy. But this is the human condition after the fall. People are finicky, sheep bite. There's just this sense that people don't like change. So they plead with Jesus to leave their region. If you go back into town, if you had one time to go back into history, or if you could go back several times, this might be one of the places you could go and plead with the people not to plead with Jesus to leave the town, but they do. Remember, he's on the east side of the Sea of Galilee, and they're asking him to plead the region. So what does he do? Leave the region. So what does he do? Verse 18, as Jesus was getting into the boat, the man who had been demon-possessed begged to go with him. Jesus did not let him, but said, go home to your own people and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how he has had mercy on you. So the man went away and began to tell in the Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him, and all the people were amazed. So the demon, there were several other people that wanted to be near Jesus, and For whatever reason, Jesus did not let this demon-possessed man join the 12. Maybe Jesus had already said it at 12 and said, I can't do any more, which when you think about it is quite interesting. The most that Jesus was able to disciple was 12 people. That was it. And he was Jesus. So to think that you personally could disciple more than 12, is it would be a stretch. Discipleship is very, very much a one-on-one or a one-on-two or a one-on-three thing. And true discipleship is letting people enter into a relationship, letting people, I wouldn't even say that. I would say it's just willfully entering a relationship into other people for the purpose of loving them to Jesus. And you can only do that with a small number of people. Jesus could only do it with 12. And this demon-possessed man wants to go with Jesus. And Jesus says no. And he leaves the area on the east side of the Jordan, which if we read earlier, was the area of the Gerasenes. I think if we go up to, they went across the lake to the region of the Gerasenes. And so that's where they are. And if I pull up the map, let me pull up that map. You see that it says Gerasa here. That means that this is the region of the Gerasenes. And the Decapolis, have we talked about the Decapolis? So the man went to tell in the Decapolis. Yeah, the Decapolis is 10 cities in this region of the east side of the Jordan River. And one of the main cities of the Decapolis is Philadelphia. You've heard of Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. And that there is a Philadelphia, but it's not called Philadelphia anymore. It's called Amman, Jordan. So Amman, Jordan is modern-day Philadelphia from the area of the Decapolis. And I brought up a list of all where was my list? Oh, here we go, the Decapolis. So the region is located in modern-day Jordan, Philadelphia, Gerasa. So we see Gerasa in Philadelphia, Pella, Gadara, Sicathopolis, Hippas, Raphana, Dion, Kanatha, Damascus. So apparently there were just 10 cities on the east side. And of course, Damascus, we know, still exists, Lebanon. But we don't, that was the area of the Decapolis, which was on the east side of the Jordan. It was 10 cities. And presumably there were walking trails between all of these cities that you could go from city to city and town to town. And so the man becomes a walking missionary for Jesus Christ. He goes over there and tells people about Jesus and how much Jesus had done, and all the people were amazed. But do they want Jesus in their town? No, they just want to be amazed. All right. We'll go into the next story. This is verse 21 of chapter 5. When Jesus had again crossed over by boat to the other side of the lake, a large crowd gathered around him while he was by the lake. So he's on the lake. He's not crossing the Jordan River. He's crossing the lake, but it appears that he is kind of on the south end of the lake. Let me just go see if I can. Yeah, it doesn't really. Yeah, he's just on the east side of the lake. You could go around the lake to the south or around the lake to the north. From the north to the south, let's look at that. I'm going to measure the distance from the south end of the lake to the north end of the lake, and it's 13 miles. So it's a fair distance, but it's not, I mean, it is walkable. You could walk it, but it's just, if you've got a boat, it's a lot easier to get from one end of the lake to the other end of the lake. So that's what people did. All right, so he gets in the boat, and to cross over the other side of the lake, a large crowd gathered around him. Verse 22, Then one of the synagogue leaders named Jairus came, and when he saw Jesus, he fell at his feet and he pleaded earnestly with him, "My little daughter is dying. Please come and put your hands on her so that you will be healed and live." So Jesus went with him. So this is Jairus' daughter, and he asked Jesus, this is a synagogue leader named Jairus. I wonder if this is the same synagogue that Jesus was teaching in. I don't know how many synagogues there were on the west side of the Sea of Galilee, but I'm very, very curious about the mountainous terrain. I'd love to see a relief map. My guess is that because if you look at pictures, we were talking about Jesus being at Peter's mother's house. And so I just looked at, there's a bunch of pictures that have been taken from that location. And so you can kind of get a feel. You stand on the shore and you look to the east and you see mountains on the other side of the Sea of Galilee. So I'm wondering if it's just not easy to get through that mountain range to get over to the other side. Like maybe the boat is the best way to get over there. And if I ever get the opportunity to see the Sea of Galilee from this area, I will report back because this may happen. One of the synagogue leaders, and so it doesn't say who he is, but he's a synagogue leader and doesn't say which synagogue. He comes to Jesus and he says, "My daughter's dying." So Jesus went with him. Presumably the daughter was healed. Let's see if this is a parallel passage from another. Let's see, Mark 5:21. Jairus. Maybe Matthew 13. Let's read Matthew 13. It would be Matthew 13, 54 to 58. Matthew 13, 54. Of course, I picked the wrong version. 54 to 58. Hold on a second. And when Jesus had finished these parables, he went away from there, and coming to his hometown, he taught in their synagogue, so that they were astonished. Where did this man get his, not all worthy saying, but Jesus said to them, prophet is not, no. So it's not really a parallel passage. Sorry. Luke 8. Let's try Luke 8:40. Sorry. Could have done this beforehand. All right. Yeah. Let's look at that one. That's got Jairus mentioned again. All right. Where is he? Okay. Luke 8:40 to 56. Now, when Jesus returned, a crowd welcomed him, for they were all expecting him. Then a man named Jairus, a synagogue leader, came and fell at his feet, pleading with him to come to his house because his only daughter, a girl of about 12, was dying. Yeah. So, we don't get right here, but Jesus went with him. So let's continue reading. A large crowd followed and pressed around him, and a woman was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years. She had suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors and had spent all she had. Yet instead of getting better, she grew worse. And when she heard about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak, because she thought, if I just touch his cloak, I will be healed. And immediately her bleeding stopped, and she felt in her body that she'd been freed from her suffering. So before we get in further, There were laws in the Old Testament that said that if a woman was bleeding, then she was unclean. There was a whole bunch of uncleanliness laws in the Old Testament. Things like if a man is sick and he's oozing, pus or something like that, that he's unclean. All these different things where fluids come out of your body, that was considered to be unclean. And you were not allowed to touch or be near somebody that was unclean until the fluid stopped or whatever. And then there was a ritual for that person to, once the bleeding or the oozing or whatever stopped, then you went and you kind of cleansed yourself and you showed yourself to the priest and you were considered to be clean. And there were a whole bunch of situations like in the Old Testament. Leprosy was also an uncleanliness. And if you were a leper, of course, if you were a leper, you were, kind of ostracized. But this lady is almost like a leper because she can't get clean. And it's not like the blood is going to kill her. Apparently she's still, living with this, but she can't do anything. She can't have touch. She can't have, because you can't touch an unclean person. And it's just, it would be a horrible way to live your life. I wouldn't say it's solitary confinement, but it's a confinement to a type of life where nobody can really be intimate with you. I mean, I'm not, because you're an unclean person. It had to have been horrible, absolutely horrible. And so she seeks out Jesus and she touches his robe and he feels, that she's touched him, even though he didn't see it. And she feels a power enter into her. So verse 30, at once Jesus realized the power had gone out from him and he turned around in the crowd and he asked, who touched my clothes? Verse 31, you see the people crowding against you, his disciple answered, and yes, yet you ask who touched me. So apparently there were so many people that wanted to touch Jesus, that there was like a crowd that they were trying to work their way through. So by this time, Jesus is starting to get really, really popular. And he says, somebody touched me. And they're like, who touched me? And the disciples are like, you got to be kidding me. Like, everybody's touched you. Who touched me? But verse 32, but Jesus kept looking around to see who had done it. And then the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell at his feet and trembling with fear told him the whole truth. And he said to her, daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering. So she felt that this happened and said, go in faith. And so she does. And presumably then she's no longer bleeding. She can go through the ceremonial ritual. She can show herself to the priest and she's able to kind of re-enter in society again. Let's see. Verse 35, while Jesus was still speaking, some people came from the house of Jairus, the synagogue leader. Your daughter is dead, they said. Why bother the teacher anymore? Overhearing what they said, Jesus told him, don't be afraid, just believe. He did not let anyone follow him except Peter, James, John, and the brother of James. And when they came to the home of the synagogue leader, Jesus saw the commotion with people crying and wailing loudly. He went in and said to them, why all this commotion and wailing? The child is not dead, but asleep. And they laughed at him. And after he put them all out, he took up the child's father and mother and the disciples who were with him and went in where the child was. He took her by the hand and said to her, Talitha cum, which means, little girl, I say to you, get up. Immediately the girl stood up and began to walk around. She was 12 years old. At this, they were completely astonished. He gave strict orders not to tell anyone about this and told them to give her something to eat. So Jesus goes over to the other side. I'm wondering, where do you suppose this is? I'm just so curious. Where is... it's in Capernaum. It's in Capernaum. I guess that makes sense. Yeah. So Jesus leaves from Capernaum, goes over to the other side, does his stuff over in the Decapolis, then he comes over on this side. And so this probably is this is the synagogue where Jesus had taught originally. And he goes away and then he comes back. And one of the leaders must have heard Jesus in the synagogue when he was teaching there, and said, "Truly, this man is a miracle worker." And so he comes and asks him to heal his daughter, his 12-year-old daughter. And then Jesus says to the little girl, "Talitha cum." And I think there's a I'll have to ask my wife, but I think I remember a choral octavo, that was Talitha cum. Let me see. Choral piece, Talitha cum. Yeah, there's one by on J.W. Pepper, Talitha cum by Joseph Martin. I wonder what year that one was written. I think I've even sung it. Let me look here and see. It's got rhythm and percussion. Yeah, I think I have sung this. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it won't let me go further than page 1. But I think I've sung this. Let's see what year it is. Copyright 1992. Copyright 1992. Yes, this would have been in the time that I was going to choral reading sessions. Maybe I sang it at a choral reading session. Oh man. So it used to be that all these publishers would come out with new music every year, and this was before the internet. Okay, I mean, 92 is still the internet age, but it wasn't, completely out there. And so if you were a choral director and you wanted to pick up new music, you would go to these choral reading sessions. So you have all these directors gathered together in a room, and they would preview music by singing it. And of course, choral directors, most of them can read music. So sometimes you'd get these incredible things. And I do remember those days. That was a lot of fun. Jennifer and I would both go to these choral reading sessions. Sometimes Jennifer's father would lead the choral reading sessions. And I remember one time going to a choral reading session where they previewed a piece that my father had written based upon a work that I had done. So I remember that. And after it was done, they clapped. And I was like, yeah, that's so cool. All right. So I'm getting way off on the weeds. I'm going to look up Talitha cum and see if I can find the music. But until we do that, let's kind of end it here and close in prayer. Gracious God, thank you for this day. Thank you for the life that you give us. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, so, oh man, it's late. I am so sorry. I don't even know where we are. Okay, so we are here, and wasn't it in Mary's house? Well, I don't know. I'll have to look into that. All right. Thank you so much for joining me today. And I pray that God richly blesses you over the weekend, and we'll see you on Monday. Take care.